however.
I'm affirming.
Way past.
Right on.
Hey, this is Chaplain Karen Moore. I want to welcome all of our viewers here to our Chapel Chats. This is a Chapel Chat that is going to talk about some of the unexpected things about motherhood, expectations of Mother's Day, and we're going to see how all of us contribute and are still uniquely designed and incredibly special, much like you who are observing this video. You are precious to God. So I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Chaplain Karen Moore here representing Chapel Next, and I'm going to go to my right, your left on the screen.
And I'm Melody, and thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I'm Christiana Coates. Glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Chaplain Lisa Northway. Glad to be here also.
Wonderful.
Hi, my name is Lisa Redford.
And I'm Shelley Sewell.
Wonderful. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here and our special of being here 6 feet apart away in a chapel chat, but still honoring that obligation to keep everybody safe and being here for our chapel chat. So one of our questions is, tell us a little bit about your story and how God has refined your story. And I'm going to actually turn it first to Miss Lisa.
Oh, no. I need an example.
I can go, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll shoot it over there.
Edit, stop. Okay. So my story and how God's refined me, first of all, he gave me 5 children, so that refines a lot. But I had my first child when I was 28, so a little older than I wanted to be, but that was God's plan, getting married mid-20s, and then had my first child. And then he's 11 years older than my last, so I have quite a gap. I was very overwhelmed as a mom with young children. My first 2 are 18 months apart. Experienced several depressions during the early years of my kids being that little. After my second, I had my first miscarriage, which was, I never passed the baby, so I had to have a D&C, which was pretty traumatic. And God redeemed that story in just a beautiful way through our daughter Grace, who's my third, how he just orchestrated the timing of her conception and her birth. Her due date was the same as the baby that I had lost. And just during that pregnancy, I just had a great sense of anticipation and hope that she was going to be okay. And when she was born, we aptly named her Grace. She's our Grace. And then after my fourth and fifth children, those were both high-risk pregnancies with different things that had shown up on ultrasounds and tests that really catapulted me into great fear, worrying. I worried a lot through those. I was really robbed of joy through those last 2 pregnancies because of the worry that I anticipated that something was going to be wrong. So it was during those last 2 pregnancies really where God just taught me more deeply his character. He's trustworthy when you're uncertain about the outcome of your child. And he gave me this verse for my fourth, and we named her Hope because of this verse that the Lord gave me as we were anticipating her birth. It's Romans 15, verse 13, and it says, I pray that God, the source of hope, will fill you completely with joy and peace because you trust in him. Then you will overflow with confident hope through the power of the Holy Spirit. So if my refining as a mom has really propelled me more and more into dependence and trust in the Lord, because you just raise your hands up, and raising them, it's hard, and then the birth and the unknowns can be so hard, and it's just that surrender, coming to that surrendering place of trust with Jesus.
Awesome. So, thank you so much, Melody, for sharing that. How many of us have been, their spouse or partner has been deployed during Mother's Day or major holidays, and you have a whole bunch of children and you're about ready to pull your hair out? Anybody with that experience? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, a little bit about that, and more of your story?
Well, it was several years ago. He was deployed, and we had 3 littles at the time, 5 and under. And I think probably our first several years in the Army, he joined at the height of the war. He wasn't home on Mother's Day, and so you have expectations, especially when you're a first-time mom, of, oh, Mother's Day, and it didn't go that way. Now he's missed several holidays. He actually has missed births of our children. Once the Lord has really refined me and totally just trusting him in the plan. Our 3rd child was born, and I wasn't able to have any more children, and I thought our family was complete, and then the Lord opened the door a couple years later for adoption, and then most recently he's grown our family in an unexpected way, and so we've grown by 4 about 6 months ago, with my husband deploying 3 weeks after they joined our family. So he's brought me to my knees more in the past 6 months than probably ever, just with almost doubling our family size, and then with 6 littles, 5 and under. I'm 40 years old, and this is not what I thought 40 would look like at all. But I do know that it's his plan, and I just continually have to take my thoughts of what I thought my life was going to look like and just surrender. Surrender is a great word. And just surrender them to what he's called me to right now in this season for his glory.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I really do appreciate that. Now, ma'am, you are a mom that was deployed. How was that, and then with all the rest of the moms who are currently deployed, how does it feel to be deployed, and those expectations and being away from the babies? Give us a little bit description about that.
I was thankful that I didn't have to go on my first deployment till our son was 13. But from that time forward till recently, really, I had spent more Mother's Days away from him than with him. Mm-hmm. So it was bittersweet. There's something very unique and beautiful about being with America's sons and daughters when their mothers can't be with them. The time that it was pivotal for me, spiritually, personally, professionally, was Mother's Day in Basra, Iraq, 2009. And our enemies, just like our spiritual enemies, know when to hit us and when it's going to hurt the deepest. And I got that call when I was on that camp that a soldier was down, and I needed to go to the TMP. We lost that soldier that day. And I remember being with him, not really knowing a lot about him, trying to gather what we do as chaplains to figure out what we can. And in that moment, you realize, this is somebody's baby. This is somebody's son. She can't be here, but I get to be here. And so it's a trade-off, sometimes being with somebody else's child in the worst times, and then sometimes in the greatest times, even downrange that we have. And earlier on in our marriage and family, my husband and I had said we believed that somehow when we gave this to God, we gave our child to God, that somehow in his economy, in time, maybe we won't fully understand at the side of eternity, it will be worth it all if we are following God's call. And still not being negligent to our own families, setting them up for success and faithfulness with God. So it's not like, okay, I've got to go do my calling. God will take care of it. It's still being responsible before you walk out the door, doing those things, but trusting that God will step in. And I was just reminded by a memory in the last couple of days now that's Mother's Day, the church mothers who committed to hugging my son on Mother's Day or giving hugs on the Sundays when my son might be used to having me around on that day and all the hustle and bustle of getting to church and all that. And that really ministered to me even from a distance, things that other moms did to step in and learning how to be grateful for those those moms that would show up on Valentine's Day, do the things that I did instead of me because I couldn't be there. So it's beautiful to see how God redeemed Mother's Day for me until this time.
It's an awesome story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate that. I think part of the hype of this COVID time where our expectations with almost everything in life has been blown to pieces, right? Like, and Mother's Day has really been hyped up in general of like spa days, and people are gonna cook for us, and we're gonna go get our hair, nails done. And then now, oh great, we can't even do that, and I have to count on my spouse to cook for me in bed, and all the expectations, you know what I'm saying? Like all the expectations. Now, Michelle, you have some story about expectations with motherhood. Can you share a little bit about that?
So for me, my expectation was like, I wanted a child. I always dreamed of having a child, but not dreamt of the marriage. So with my first child, I was with her dad for the longest we were together. So I had my child, I was a single mom. And then I put myself back into school because I was working. Then with my other two kids, because I have a total of 3 kids, I had gotten married and then had the 2 kids. And now I'm living as a single mom because we're separated. And that's been hard, but it's like it's hard with a different twist to it. Because I've gotten baptized, I rededicated my life after my second daughter, and I've grown more spiritually with Christ. So even through separation, like His will and His purpose has just make it much easier. So for the last year and a half, I've even got back into school, trying to finish up my bachelor's, and we've been doing this thing where we all pitch in to do it together. Like it's me and my kids. What is they have their set goals that they're gonna achieve both spiritually and physically. And is my my thing is like I have to be the example, to show that, hey, in spite of this, I've been throwing the ball where I'm now single and now I have to deal with this, but what will be my outcome? Will I have this defeat me, or will I pursue it? Will I make their life better? And that's always my thing. So we still do the same activities as if there was both parents would be here. We still go on trips. We still go to the movies. We go to the dinner. We do all these different stuff. But most of all, my kids and I attend church every Sunday, and we dress up and we worship like it's the last day. So as Melody was saying, I have a scripture here is, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalms 23 is my day too, that life will go on, I will live, He will provide in spite of. And I've been making it, and I'm thank God for that. Thank God for family background, that my parents who show me the way, and now I can live this life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate it. So as again, the expectations of being isolated at home, some of the ladies who might be maybe watching this at a later date, and they're just feeling isolated and more so, and as a very predominant lady who's done most of her career as the civilian life, but now is a military spouse, and with this isolation, how could you offer some advice to some of those ladies, and then if you want to add a little bit more of your story?
Okay, so I would say that I became a mom, but it wasn't according to my plan, like I think has been the theme here. I had a 5-year plan, and it did not include children, and then I had 3 kids in 3 years and 3 months, and they were all boys. So, and I'm just surrounded by boys all the time. So my life is very lively and active. And so naturally, when my husband announced that he was going to deploy again this year, my plan for keeping these boys entertained and active was to be gone and very, very busy for the whole of his deployment. And then COVID happened, and I had to really have a moment with the Lord where he said, your plan for this separation was to be busy. Busyness was your defense. And he had to remind me that he is my hope and stay, and that he is, he's the only thing that can fill my time. He's the only thing worth filling my time, not busyness, not soccer schedules, not travel, not play dates or museums or all the end of year activities, which is my plan, but it was that my time and space and energy and focus was never changed. It was always supposed to be on him. And so that's been a real eye-opening, a spiritual awakening for me. And when I pray, my kids usually pray the Lord's Prayer before bed. And so the line, "Give me this day my daily bread," has had new meaning, because we only have this day. And so how can we rejoice and be glad in it? Because it's a gift. And how can we keep our eyes focused on Christ and his purpose for us? And how can he be glorified through this time? And so we've just been trying to focus on that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that sense of hope and adjustability, I guess, of following God's plan. I know that for myself, trying to find that normality in God's plan, I've been married, we'll be celebrating 20 years in December, and James and I have not conceived. It was a real trial in my life. I mean, 20 years ago, the expectation was women are supposed to have kids. And so this high expectation, we were married roughly 2 years, and in that 2 years, people are like, just don't worry about it, relax, it's your honeymoon phase, enjoy it. I had just finished my associates, and then 9/11 happened, and my husband's like, I'm all in. I want to do this Army thing. And I'm like, woohoo, this is awesome. Because my dad was in, and I'm very proud that he served. And I'm like, I get to be kind of in the military and not be in it, which is ironic because now I am in it much older. But yeah, I'm like, okay, let's go for it. So we did our first move. We moved to the Presidio of Monterey. He became a linguist. And so while we were there, this expectation of military spouses are supposed to have kids. And so that pressure just came on even more so. And I was kind of like lost in the sauce, trying to figure out how to be a military spouse. And then you're supposed to be engaged with all these kids around. And I'm really good with kids. I've been raising kids since I basically was 14 years old. And cool, but it wasn't happening. And the struggle just became a little bit more. My mother-in-law and my own mother were very gracious. They weren't the kind that were nagging and like, oh, you need to have kids. But it still was really hard with the pressure of being on base, being a military spouse, and not having kids. Well, what are you doing with your life? Are you just sitting at home? Are you going to be a dependentibus or whatever? All the cruel things that people say. And so it took until there was a struggle with it until James and I, we were deployed, or we were stationed at Camp Red Cloud. It was the first time they opened up sponsorship to civilians at that time. And it was year 10, our 10-year anniversary. And that was actually the year that I received the call to become a chaplain, as well as James and I didn't want to invest. That was the other thing that people were nagging. Oh, well, you can adopt, you can foster, you can do in vitro, you can have your family. And with our situation, and we looked into adoption when we were in Korea, because we wanted to adopt from Korea, but then they made all these restrictions, and it couldn't do that. Foster care is really hard because of the homesteading, and he was always gone, and I was gone, and all of this, and then for us, we just said, you know what? God has got a calling for us that it's not necessarily a have to. God's not going to love me any differently because I'm a mom or not. And so what I did hear was a voice from Isaiah where it says, "Blessed is the barren woman, for hers will be the mother of all nations." And that very shortly after, when we decided we'll just let whatever play out happen, and that's when I received the call to become a chaplain. And I've literally been all over the world to have these, how many children do I have? Like, what, 600 in my battalion that I'm in charge of and are supposed to have the energy for? But I remember the biggest thing, and for any of you who are out there who are stuck in your head and hearing the things, the negativity that people put on you, don't go down that road. Don't worry. If you are in grief, if you are struggling because you can't produce or you can't, and people just say things that are mean, and it sticks with you in your heart and your soul, I just want to tell you, God's got an amazing plan for you, and you are his daughter. Enjoy that. And that's what I heard a lot from your different stories, is that God has some amazing plans. Even though we didn't expect to do it the way that we had planned, expectations didn't work that way. God still has an amazing thing. And so as we're wrapping up our time here with our Chapel Chat Mother's Day edition, what we are going to do is we'll be in the comment section. So if you're seeing something and one of our stories hits home, write down there. We'll be on the Facebook page right there with you, because you know what? Even though you're isolated and even though your spouse is deployed or you're all alone, you're not alone. You're in the Chapel Next community, and we are here for you, and God loves you, and he cares about you, and he wants more than anything for you to accept that love and that grace. So this has been our really quick introduction. I wish we could do more time, but I want to honor the time that you all have come out and given. So thank you, ladies, very, very much for coming out. And please, please, please comment below, and you can always find us here on the Facebook page. Well, this is Chaplain Karen Moore for the Chapel Next Chapel Chats.